大家早上好，老师们、同学们，大家早上好。现在我会跟大家分享一下比赛的一些详情，我会用英文来讲解。Okay, good morning everyone. Now I will brief you about the qualifying test, preliminary test, and also the final competition. So before that, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Carl from Utah. Okay, here is the outlines for today's presentation. We will talk about competition platform, sample qualifying test, rules and regulation of preliminary test, and also the final competition. Then we will talk about the IDE installation. We will focus on Visual Studio Code. And also we will look at sample preliminary test question and final questions. Okay, now we look at competition platform for qualifying tests. Okay, for the qualifying test, we will be using Utah Weber. So the announcement, the question to be released, and answer submission are in Weber. Okay, now we look at sample qualifying tests. There are 4 categories. The first categories will be basic concepts. Here we have the sample of the question based on the basic concepts. Means that you have to know the basic concept of the programming. And the second category will be arithmetic and logic, means that you will have some of the mathematical expression. So you have to analyze the mathematical expression. So this is the second sample of the question for qualifying test. This is the third category. We have algorithm analysis. If you are given a situation, then you have to analyze the situation and apply the algorithm to solve it. This is the last category, code reading. You will be given a segment of the code. You have to understand the code. Then you have to answer the question based on the code. Okay, now we talk about how you're going to assess the qualifying test. We will be using Weber. So here we have the link to the Utah Weber. This is the link to the website. After you click on the link, you have to use the username and password to log into the page in order to access the qualifying test. So how are you going to create your username and password? For username, it will be using the first 2 characters of NC combined with the last 4 digits of your registered phone number and also your last 2 characters of your student ID. For password, we will be using the first character of P, capital P, combined with the last 7 digits of your registered phone number. Here we have 2 examples. The first example, we have the phone, we have the student ID. Okay, so for the username, it will be start with NC, capital letter. Then we combine with the last 4 digits of your registered phone. We have 6789. So now we have NC 6789 and combine with the last 2 characters of your ID. The last 2 characters of the first example is 5 and 6. So here we have the username NC 678956. So this is your username. For the password, you have the capital P for the first character, then you combine with the last 7 digits of your registered phone number. So you have 3456789. So here will be your password P3456789. So for the combination of the username and password, you are able to log into the Weber and access the qualifying test. Here we have the second example. This is the phone number and we have student ID. Okay, for the username, we have NC for the first 2 characters, then we combine with the last 4 digits of your registered phone number, 9013. And the last 2 characters of your ID. Symbol is not included. Symbol is not included, so here we have 8B. So at the end, we have the username of NC90138B. So this is your username. For the password, we have the first character of capital P, comma with the last 7 digits of your registered phone number. So the last 7 digits will be 3579013. So here you get the password P3579013. Then you have the combination of the username and password to log into the Weber to access the quiz. Okay, if you are still not sure, then you can provide your name, school, and student number in the chat. Then we will come and assist you. Okay, this is the sample platform of the Weber. We have the multiple choice question for the qualifying test. So each of the question, you have 4 choices. You have to choose the answer. At the bottom of the page, you will have 2 buttons. The first button will be save without submitting. The second button will be submit all and finish. For the save without submitting, you are recommended to click it from time to time because it will save your answer. Let's say if suddenly you have power failure or internet connection problem, when you come in again, you can just start from where you stop. So you can just continue without redo everything. So this is the benefit of clicking the save without submitting button. For preliminary test. Okay, if you pass your qualifying test, then you will proceed to the preliminary test. Now we look at the rules and regulation. Okay, for the conduct mode, it will be online. So the preliminary test will be conducted online, and you have to form 3 members per team. The duration of the preliminary test will be 1 hour, and you will have 15 short questions. You have to use either C++ or Java to solve the question. For the resources, each of you need to prepare your own personal computer in order to code and in order to code your program, the solution of your question. The suggested compilers will be Dev C++ and also Visual Studio Code. However, you are allowed to use any other compiler as long as you are able to write your code and compile your code and submit your code. So it should be fine. Include the online compiler from any browser. Okay, for the format of competition, the competition will consist of 15 questions. For these 15 questions, there are 3 levels. The first level will be easy, the second level will be medium, and the third level will be difficult. So there are 3 levels. Each of the level will have different mark allocation. So you can just solve the problem in any order. So you can start with the question that you are confident with. For the submission procedures, whenever you have ready for each of the questions, you can just submit it for judging. All of the solution will be submitted online, and timestamp will be electronically recorded for each submission. Okay, now we look at judging criteria. This is just the draft, so we will confirm it in the next workshop. Okay, the submitted code will run in the system and it will check and indicate whether the output is correct or not using different test cases. Each submitted solution that is correct will be counted, and you are allowed to resubmit a few times. If the solution is wrong, then you can just resubmit your solution until it is correct. No penalty will be imposed, so you can just submit as many times as you want. Penalty will only apply if we found out that there are more than one group that are having the similar solutions. So no plagiarism is allowed. You are not allowed to share your answer with other things. If we found out that you are having the same solution, then we will impose the penalty. The qualifying teams will be the teams that score high marks with term and condition. For term and condition, we will discuss in the next were short. Time strain will be imposed on the borderline cases, meaning that if more than one group are having the same number of correct submission, then we will look at the shorter times. We will look at the last correct solution submission time. So the shorter one will be qualified. Okay. After you are qualified to the after you are qualified to the final competition, then you can proceed to the final competition. So now we will look at rules and regulations. So for the final competition, we will conduct it in online mode. And for the same, you will have 3 members per team. For the duration, it will be 3 hours, and you will have 8 questions. And you have to solve the question using C++ or Java. For the same, each of you have to prepare your own computer, and the suggested compiler will be Dev C++ and Visual Studio Code. And you can use any other compiler, it's acceptable. For the format of the competition will consist of 8 questions, and you can solve it in any order. For the submission procedure, you have to submit online. So when you are ready for each of the questions, you can just submit the question by question. Timestamp and timestamp of the submission will be electronically recorded. Okay, now we look at judging criteria. The submitted code will be run in the system, and it will check and indicate whether the output is correct or not using different cases. Each of the solution that is correct will be counted. Okay, for the winning team, for those teams that answer the most questions correctly with the shortest amount of time will be the winner. So make sure you have the shortest time amount of the duration. You have the shorter amount of the time that you use to answer the questions. Okay, how are we going to calculate the total mark? The total time. Okay, the total time will be based on the last correct solution plus additional penalty time for incorrect submissions of the question which eventually the team solved correctly. Okay, for each of the attempt, we will impose 10 minutes of the penalty. Later on, we will look at the example on how we're going to calculate the total time. Okay, here we have 4 examples, 4 situations. Okay, now we look at the first team. Team 1 answered question A incorrectly after 30 minutes and correctly after 35 minutes. Also, the team answers question B correctly after 62 minutes. Then the total time will be the last correct submission time, which is question B, 62 minutes. So we will use 62 minutes plus, so we have to check if any penalty need to impose or not. So for question A, for question A, they submitted the first incorrect answer. So we have to imply 10 minutes of the penalty. So after the second time, they managed to submit correct answer. If the last submitted answer is correct, only we will imply the penalty. So they have the correct answer at the end. So they only attempt 1 time. So we will impose only 10 minutes. So the total time will be 72 minutes. Okay, now we look at example 2. Team 2. Team 2 answers question B incorrectly after 10 minutes and correctly after 18 minutes. So this team 2 decide to answer the question B first. Also, the team answered question A incorrectly after 60 minutes and correctly after 65 minutes. So the total time is the last correct submission time, which is 65. So how about the penalty? For question B, they have 1 time of the incorrect submission, so we imply 10 minutes of the penalty. For question B, for the same, they have 1 time incorrect submission, so we impose another 10 minutes. So the total time will be 65 plus 10 plus 10. Then we have the total time of 85 minutes. Now we look at example 3. Team 3 answers question A correctly after 50 minutes. Also, the team answers question B incorrectly and submitted the wrong answer to the question for 3 times. But they managed to answer it correctly for the 4th time at 54 minutes. Then the penalty will be 30 minutes because they attempt 3 times of wrong submission answer. So the total time will be the last correct submission time 54 plus 10 minutes multiplied by 3 times. So the total will be 84 minutes. For the example 4, team 4 answered question A correctly after 25 minutes. Also, the team answered question B incorrectly and submitted the wrong answer to the question for the 3rd time at 15 minutes. The team eventually gave up to answer the question after 3 wrong attempts. So for this case, there is no penalty will be applied. So the total time for this team 4 will be the last correct submission time, which is 24 minutes. Okay, this is just the summary of the previous example 1 until 4. So now we just look at it. So team 1 answered the question in the order of A and B. So for the last correct submission of the solution will be 62 minutes. Then we have to check number of attempts after the first answer submission is wrong. So for question A, they submitted 1 wrong answer, so we count 1. So we have to check if they resubmit the question, they resubmit the solution, is it eventually become correct? So for this case, question A is yes. So we have to impose 1 time of the 10 minutes. So for question B, they straight away submit the correct answer. So the total penalty is only 10 minutes. Okay, number of question answered correctly. So team 1 answered correctly 2. The total time will be last correct submission time plus penalty. So we have 62 plus the penalty of 10. So the total time will be 72 for team 1. For team 2, they answer question B first, only A. So the last correct solution submission will be 65. Then we check for the number of attempts after the first answer submission is wrong. So for question B, there's 1 time. And question A, also 1 time. So both of the questions are eventually submitted correct solution. So we have to impose penalty. So for question B, we impose 10 minutes. And for question A, we also impose 10 minutes. So the total penalty will be 20 minutes. And the number of question answered correctly will be 2 for team 2. Then the total time will be 65 plus 20. Then we have 85. For team 3, they answer the question in the order of A and B. The last correct solution submission will be 54. Then we have to check number of attempts after the first answer submission is wrong. So for question A, there's no, they straight away submit the correct answer. For question B, they try 3 times. So they have 3 times incorrect solution submission. So we have to keep track 3 attempts. Then we have to check if the solution is eventually correct or not. Yes. So we have to imply the penalty. So they have 3 attempt wrong submission. 3 multiplied by 10, we get 30 minutes. Then the number of questions answered correctly will be 2, and the total time will be 54 plus 30 equal to 84. And the last team 4 will be, they are answering the question according to the order of A and B. So the time for last correct solution submission will be 25. And for question B, they try to attempt 3 times, but all 3 times are all incorrect. So eventually the answer is also incorrect. So there's no penalty will be imposed. So the total penalty is 0, and the number of questions answered correctly will be 1. Then the total time will be 25. So we will base on the number of questions answered correctly and also the total time to do the ranking. So team 1, team 2, and team 3 are having the same amount of the number of questions answered correctly. So we have to get the total time. The shortest one will be the winner. So team 1 is having the shorter time. We have 72, so it will be ranked to first. And the second one will be 84. So team 3 is the second, team 2 will be the third, and team 4 will be the last because they only answer correct one question. Okay, this is the competition flow. Okay, first, when you get the question, then you can start to solve the problem. Then if you have done one question, then you check if the time still within the competition time. If yes, then you proceed to the submission. Then the system will check if the answer correct or not. If yes, then it will check if the question is submitted for the first time. If yes, then you can just proceed to the next question if there's still any question left. So you just proceed to the next question. Okay, if the answer that you submit is correct, but it's not the first time, then we will impose the penalty of 10 minutes per attempt. So after that, you just proceed to the next question if there's any. So you just follow the same procedure. So until it's no longer the competition time is no longer within the competition time, then we will proceed to calculate the total time and get the result. So if you have done everything, you have completed all of the question, then no question left, we also proceed to the process of recording the total time. Then we will produce the result. Okay, here we have some recommended criteria. Okay, for the preliminary test and also the final competition, the most important thing is you have to make sure that you have a good internet connection. Because everything is conducted online, you have to do the question and you have to submit your question online. So make sure you have the internet connection, which is acceptable. And the recommended compiler that you can use in your own PC will be Visual Studio Code. It's just a small download, less than 200 MB. Okay, to support the compiler Visual Studio Code, the PC hardware requirements are recommended as here. You have minimum 256 GB of the hard disk, 1.6 GHz or faster processor, and Windows 8.0, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10. So here we have some of the two types of the Linux, the instance. Okay, if you are not able to install for the online C++ compiler or or online Java compiler. Okay, now we look at IDE installation for Visual Studio Code. So this one, I just brief you the link. So for the VS Code, Visual Studio Code for C++ development, you can just follow the link. So here we have 3 parts of the link. You can just follow the guideline. And we also provide the manual. So here is the link for the Java development. So this is just the link. You can have a look yourself. Okay, now we proceed to sample preliminary test questions. Okay, here we only show you 3 samples of the preliminary test question. We will give you one of the sample solution for one of the question. So the other 2 questions you can try out at home. Okay, the first question is about highest common factor. This will be the title of the question, and we have the description. The highest common factor, HCF, is the largest number among all of the common factors of 2 numbers. Okay, here we have the example. If you are given 2 values, 24 and 60, then you have to find out the highest common factor for these 2 integers. So for this example, the highest common factor will be 12. If we are given 99 and 80, the highest common factor will be 1. Okay, now you have to write a program to accept 2 integers, x and y. So x and y will be representing these 2 integers. And the range of the integer will be from 1 until 10,000 only. So you have to do input validation. So make sure the user input the correct range of the value. After that, you have to output the value of the highest common factor. So this is the first example of the question. Then here we have some of the sample of the output. If the inputs are 77 and 1 to 1, then the correct output will be 11. If the inputs are 3375 and 2000, then the correct output will be 125. And the third example will be 999 and 5678. So these both value, the highest common factor will be 1. Okay, this is the sample output of the program. Please key in first integer. Then you have to ask the user to input the first integer. Please key in second integer. Then the user need to input another integer. Integer means the whole number. Okay, after that, after we get the 2 input, then we have to find out the highest common factor, which is the same as greatest common divisor. So we have the output of 11. Then we have the second sample output. We have the value of 9999 and 5678. So it will find out the highest common factor is 1. Okay, for sample output 3, you can see that here we have some of the input validation. If the user input character, which is not integer, then what will happen? So if there is combination of digit and also character, then what, digit and the letter, what will happen? So you have to ask the user to rekey in again. So make sure they key in the correct input. And also if it's not in the range, it's not in the range from 1 until 10,000, then you have to ask the user to key in again. So now, finally, we get the correct input, 525. When you get the 2 correct input, then it will find out the highest common factor for you. So we get 25. So here we have sample solution in C++ and also Java. Now we look at C++. So this is the main function. Okay, we have declared the variable SL and YL. This is to store the 2 integers from the user input. And also we have other of the variables. So this depends on your algorithm on how are you going to calculate the highest common factor. So here we have do while loop. So this do while loop is just to do the input validation. We have to make sure that user input the correct value. So this is to check the first input. Here we have the display message, please key in first integer. Here we have the range 0 until 10,000. So we have to get the user input. So here we declare the variable as string, means that the user can key in the combination of the character. So after the user key in, we try to check if the user key in digit or not. So this is the function to check if is not digit, if is not digit, then we will just break and look again to ask the user to input the value again. So until the user input the correct input, which is integer, then we will then convert the string to the integer. Then we can proceed to the comparison. If is within the range. If is within the range, then we just proceed to the second input. So follow the same procedure. Just check for the second input, is it integer within the range of 0 until 10,000, and make sure there's no character or any symbol letter input, only accept digit within the range. So this is just to check the second input. Then after we get the two input, we have to apply our own algorithm to calculate the highest common factor. So this is just one of the example. You can use any other way, any other method to calculate it. So as long as you get the correct output, it should be fine. So you can use any algorithm. So after you found out, then you just display the highest common factor. So you have the highest common factor of the value x and y, then you just show the output. So this is the sample solution in C++. Okay, here we have the sample solution in Java. So for this sample solution in Java is the same concept as C++. Just the syntax are different. So you can have a look yourself. Just syntax is different with the C++ programming language. So the idea is the same. Okay, now we look at the second example of the preliminary test question. So for this one, you can try it out at home. We will provide the solution and we will discuss it in next workshop. So you can try it out first. Okay, for the question 2 is about Fibonacci numbers. Okay, here we have the description. So for the Fibonacci numbers are a sequence of numbers where each number is the sum of the two preceding ones, starting from 0 and 1. So here we have the formula. F0 is equal to 0, F1 is equal to 1. Then you have the formula to calculate if you have n number. And the n number will be larger or equal to 2. So this is the formula. So now you have to write a program to accept an integer and you have to check the input validation. Make sure it's integer and it's within the range of 2 until 100 only. So if the input are correct, if the input is correct, then you have to display the output of the value of Fn. So for this question, you can try it out at home. So you can apply any algorithm which is suitable. So as long as you can get the correct output, it should be fine. Okay, here we have the sample. If the input is 10, then the correct output is 55. If the input is 20, then the correct output is 6765. Okay, if the input is 100, then the correct output is 3542248848 17926191505. So you have to find a way to display the output that have a long integer value. Okay, here we have the third sample of the preliminary test question. So this is about quadratic equation. Here we have the description. A quadratic equation is an equation that can be rearranged in the standard form as, here we have the formula. The value of x that satisfy the equation are called the solutions of the equation. A solution is said to be a real solution if it's a real number. So now you have to write a program to accept 3 real numbers, A, B, C. So you have to get the user input for the value A, B, and C. Then you have to find out the value of X. So you have to make sure the range is between -100 until 100. So this is the value for A, B, C. So you have to do input validation. Then output the real solution of the corresponding quadratic equation, rounding to 2 decimal places. If there's no real solution, the output is the message, no real solution. So you have to get the output and round it to the 2 decimal places. Okay, here we have some of the sample of the output. If the input are 1.5, -9, and -5.5, then what is the correct output? So you will get 6.56 and -0.56. So you can see that here we have the output with 2 decimal places. So same for the second example, if we have input 9, -57, and 90.25. So this is representing A, B, C in the formula. So you will get the correct output of 3.17. Again, we have 2 decimal places. Okay, if you have the input value that have no real solution, then you have to display the message of no real solution. So depend on your value that user input. Okay, these are all about the preliminary test sample questions. So remember to try out at home for the last 2 questions. Okay, now we look at the sample final questions. This is the final competition. After you are qualified to the final competition, then you have to pass. You have to do the question. So here we have the first sample of the question. It's about the day of the week. Follow the Gregorian calendar. So here we have the description of the Gregorian calendar. And we also provide the condition to find out the leap years. For leap years means that the years that having the February month with 29 days. So how are we going to find the leap years? We have to follow these 3 conditions. They have to meet 3 conditions. First, the year must be divisible by 4. Okay, if it meets the first condition, then you have to proceed to the second condition. You have to make sure the year also can be divided by 100. And it is still not leap year yet. You have the third condition. If the year can also divisible by 400, then you are confirmed that the year is leap year, means that it has 29 days in February. So for this example, 1700, 1800, 1900, this year can be divisible by 4 and 100, but it cannot divide by 400. So these are not leap year, but 1600 and 2000 are leap year because they can be divided by these 4 values. So this is just the information of the day of the month. So for example, we have January, February, March, and so on until December. For January, we have 31 days. February, we have 28 days if it's not leap year. If it's a leap year, then it will be 29 days. So you have to check for all of the conditions. And these are all the days that we have inside each of the month. So in total, we have 365 days per year. Okay, for week, 1 week, we have 7 days. We will have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So the question, now we look at the question. For the question, you will need to ask the user to input the day, month, and year. And you have to calculate which day of the week, depending on this input of the date. So here we have the example. Let's say user input 17th of April in 2021 year, in 2021. So you have to come up with the output of Saturday. So for the next example, if you have 29th of February in 2100, then you have to validate if it's the correct date or not. If it's not valid, then you just display the message. This is not a valid date. Please key in another date. So the user need to key in again. Okay, your program must fulfill the following. We will give you the requirement. Then you can just follow the requirement to write your program. So these are the range for the day, 1 until 31. So depends on the condition. So each of the month will have different number of the day. Then we have month, January until December. So we have 12 months. And for the year, we will start from 1582 until 9999. Okay, if the input is a valid date, then you have to display the correct output of the day of the week. If the input is not valid, then you just display the error message and ask the user to input again. Okay, here we provide you the formula to calculate the day based on the day. This is just one of the way to calculate it. Okay, here we have the example. So the user need to key in day, month, and year. So if it's the valid date, then it will display is Saturday. Then we have another input. If the user input invalid date, then she or he has to rekeying again. So when they rekeying again and it's a valid date, then you have to output is Monday. Okay, here we have the sample solution in C++ and also Java. For the same, the concept is the same, just the syntax are different. Okay, here we have the declaration of the variables that we want to use in this program. Then we have to ask the user to input the day, month, and also the year. Okay, now we have the condition to check if the year is within the range that inside the requirement of the question. And also the month, we have to check the input if it's in the range, then also the day. Okay, here we have the condition to check for the February, how many days that we have. So we have to check if it's leap year or not. If it's leap year, then we will have 29 days. If it's not, then we will proceed to February is having 28 days. So this is just to validate the day. Then we have to tell the compiler which month is having 31 days. So we have January, March, May, and so on. Then else we will have 30 days. And also you have to validate the range of the day, make sure it's within the day, within the range. So if it's invalid, then you can just look again and ask the user to key in the input again. So this is just the formula that we provide in the requirement. You just convert it to the program. So you just convert it to the code. This is just the formula to calculate it. Then after we get the result, then we just proceed to the 6th case. We check for the case. So there are 7 cases. So it will be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and so on. So for case 0, it will display is Sunday. For case 1, it will display is Monday, and so on. So we have case 0 until case 6. Based on the output of the algorithm, the result that we get, then we just check for the cases. So this is the solution in C++. We also have Java, so the concept is the same. You have to ask the user the input. Then you just check for the range of the year, month, and days, and which month is having 31 days and which month is having 30 days, and also the leap years. Then you have to measure the range, and also we have the formula to calculate the day given a date. Then we have the cases based on the output of the result that you calculate in your formula. So the concept are the same, just the syntax in C++ and Java are different. You can use either one of the programming language that you are familiar with. Okay, we have another sample of the question for the final. This is to guess the number game. Okay, now we look at description. For this game, this is a two-player game. For the first player, he or she has to think a secret number, and the other second player has to guess the number. When he or she guesses the number, the first player needs to tell the second player whether the number that he or she guessed is higher or lower or equal to the secret number. So this is the question. So now the computer will take over the first player. So we need to random generate one of the value. Then the player, the user, need to guess the number that generated by the computer. So for the same, for each of the guess, the computer need to show the message whether the guess is higher, lower, or equal to the number generated by the computer. Okay, here we have the requirements. Your program must fulfill the following. So you have to ask the user to input the value which is in the range from 1 until 100 only. So if it's within the range, then you have to output whether it's higher than the right number or lower than the right number, or it is the same. If it's the same, means that you win. If the input is not integer and not within the range, then you have to display the message, this is an invalid input. Then you have to ask the user to key in again. So you have to tell the user to key in from 1 until 100 only. Okay, now after you get the value, then you can just compare. You compare the number with the random number that you generated in computer. So you have to display the message, tell the user if the guess of the number was too high or too low. If the number that they guess is not correct. Also, each of the user is limited to the 10 times of the turn only. So they can guess 10 times only. So this is the sample of the output. Guess an integer with a value in the range of 1 to 100. So the user need to input the value. After input, then you have to compare. So if it's higher, then you just display. Your guess is higher than the right number. Then you have to display how many turns that the user still left. If the number that you have is exactly the same as the random number generated from the computer, then you have to display, you win. The number is, then you just display the correct number. Then you have to display how many turns that you have used to guess the right number. Okay, now let's say if you already tried 10 attempts and you cannot guess correct value, then it will display you lose. The right answer is, then you just display the correct answer. Okay, this is just the example of the input and output. Okay, let's say the user input character, symbol. So you have to do input validation. So you have to display the message, this is an invalid input. So you have to ask the user input again. So for the invalid input, the number of turns is not deducted. The number of turns is not deducted, then we have to ask the user to rekey again. If the value is correct, then only we deduct the number of turns. So you can just continue guessing. Okay, if the computer generates 67, then if you key in 67, then it will display you win. The number is 67. You use 3 turns to guess the right number. So after 10 attempts, you cannot guess the correct answer, then it will display the message, you lose. The right answer is 67. So this is the sample solution in C++. You have the declaration of the variables, then you have to random generate the value. Then after you random generate the value, you ask the user to input the integer. Then you have to check the input validation, make sure it's integer and within the range. So if it's within the range, then you can check. If the guess is the number that user input, guess is the number that generated by the computer. So if they are the same, then you have to display the message of you win, the number is, so you display the correct number and you use how many turns to try to guess the correct answer. So if the guess is less than the number, means that your guess is lower than the correct number, then you have to display the message, your guess is lower than the right number. Then the number of turns that you left, you can just display it. If the guess is larger than none, means that your guess is higher than the right number. So you just display it and state the turn left by the user. Okay, if you have attempted for 10 times, then you will display the message, you lose, the right answer is, then it will show the number generated by the computer. So this is the sample solution in C++. We also have the solution in Java. So you can have a look. So this is the sample output. So this is the display message, the guideline on how to play the game. So when you input, then you have the corresponding output. So this is the sample 2. So let's say if you input symbol or decimal point, the number of turns is not deducted until you key in the correct integer. Okay, so that's the all of the briefing. Thank you very much. So now I pass back the floor to the MC.
呀，谢谢我们的 Professor 谢谢我们的 Dr. Kao。OK， 在同学们，我们再一个掌声给我们的老师好吗？我们用888好了啊，因为888有那个掌声的效果，啪啪啪啊，好不好？来呀，谢谢同学们啊。今天这样连续一个早上下来3个不同的 section 啊，同学们也给自己一个掌声哦，这个掌声给老师也给自己好不好？因为我发现很多同学在这从8点到现在啊3个多小时，我觉得很多同学们应该是收获很大啊。那也希望同学们有参加这次比赛的，尤其是最后一个 section， 最后一个这个分享啊，可能都有留意了啊。接下来是还有剩下2分钟就进入12点了，我们有一个测试这个比赛的这个资格啊。那各位如果还没有或者想要重复再来做这个试题的，都非常欢迎啊。待会12点各位可以移步到那个地方去做一个测试啊。下来我快速的谢谢我们的这个 UDA 的 Professor 啊，所有的老师们啊。那下来我做一个小小的这个大会的一个这个讯息的发布之后，那我们就要结束今天的这个分享会了啊。罗宇轩啊，如果你已经通过了之前的，你可以不需要再做啊。不过你想要再做也可以。那今天如果你在做，我们会取每一次做的最高的成绩为主，所以你放心，今天你可以去练习啊，是可以的啊。OK， 好，那下来我们跟各位公布一下，我们在这个下来的这个时间啊，我们会如何进行这个比赛啊？我们 下一场会在8月31日，马来西亚的国庆日很好记，8月31日早上的时间，我们也是一样，8点半到12点的时间我看一下，我 double check 一下这个时间那我们有一个这个分享会给所有可以晋级我们的预赛的同学们可以进来可以晋级我们的这个预赛的同学们可以进来，我们会告诉大家这个比赛的细节比赛初赛的预赛的这个细节会在8月31号8点半到12点的时间所以里面会有细节，欢迎各位来参加，好不好？如果你已经qualify 的话了所有的同学都可以来参加好，那下来是9月13号是我们的预赛9月13号会是我们的预赛，所有符合这个资格的同学们要留意了把这个时间空出来。9月13号是我们的预赛，细节我们会在群里再跟大家发布的。那我们真正的大决赛会在10月30号，这也是我们原定的时间，10月30号会是我们的大决赛那现在我们已经大概知道所有政府的这个 SOP 了目前我们是决定了这个决赛也会在线上举行不是线下的线上举行。如果有任何更动，我们会再告诉所有的同学们所以各位放心，我们一定会一直的 update 大家所有我们最新的消息，好不好？那现在已经12点了，所以如果有同学要去参加我们那个资格的测试的话，欢迎大家可以移步过去。那也再一次谢谢所有我们今天线上的同学老师，所有我们的这个同学们我们今天的工作坊就到这里了。那我们这个 Zoom 会一直留到1点钟，我们会关闭那同学们如果想要离开的可以离开，想要留下来的也可以留下来，或者有任何问题也可以在这里我们的秘书当然如果是资格的那个测试有任何问题的话，欢迎同学点击那个 WhatsApp 的群可以在 WhatsApp 群里跟我们的这个负责的老师们互动，好不好？好，那欢迎各位参加我们的这个资格的测试不管你已经有测过或者还没测过那也期待各位在8月31号我们可以再见面，好不好？那我们今天的工作坊到这里就圆满结束谢谢各位，再一次谢谢各位谢谢，拜拜。